the thing that I love about this and what you're going to get to today, I have two promises. One, that you're going to have fun, because I am such a person that if you don't have fun, then why do it? The next part also that I want to make a promise is that you're going to have a tool that you can use in your everyday life. And the tool will give you an option to take something that you consider ugly about yourself, and we'll go more into what that means, and be able to find some beauty in it. And if you can find some beauty in it, then you don't have to hide it so much, then you'll have a lot more freedom to just be yourself. So there's a lot of people that talk about the ugly, especially in the psychological world. And one of the people that I find described it the best with an analogy was Debbie Ford. She talks about it like a beach ball. And this beach ball, I wish I had a beach ball in my hand. The beach ball that came and that you're trying to keep hidden underwater. Have you ever tried to play a game where you try and keep the ball underwater? Mm-hmm. What usually happens at some point? It pops up, right? Makes a big splash. It usually hits you right in the nose, like makes a big mess, right? But this is how we deal with our ugly. We keep it like a beach ball underwater. And we put a whole lot of time and energy focusing all on that, because you can't do much except that at that point. You can't have like a general conversation while you're like, trying to hold this ball underwater. But that's often how we try and live our lives. Through this ugly, we look at the ugly as this beach ball. So the opportunity of loving your ugly and embracing that part is to be able to let go and have it come to the surface, and have the opportunity to look at all sides and see if there's other things about this part of ourselves that we can embrace or see that has value. So that's what we're going to go through today. So we're going to go to the first step. And the first step is tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but. And the importance of telling the truth is you got to get all of your thoughts, all of your feelings out, and really own all of the pieces of this ugly. So these are all the critical voices in your head that tell you all the things related to this ugly. And the reason for telling the truth, it's like shining a flashlight on something. If it's sitting in the corner and it hasn't been looked at for a long time, you kind of forget that it's there, and it's important to kind of shine the light on it so that you can look at it and see if there's anything else there. So we're going to shine the lights to see what else is a part of this ugly. When you think about this particular ugly, what are the thoughts that come up in your head? What does the critical voice in the back of your head start saying about it? What are the feelings that you have? Do you have shame? Do you have guilt? Do you have embarrassment? Do you have disappointment? Go ahead and share what just came up for you in step 1, telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but. Go ahead. A minute. Okay, go ahead and start wrapping up. And please stop talking. Okay. So how did that vomit feel? How did it feel to actually start writing it? Like on a scale of 1 to 10 of like, ugh, like how many were out of 7 of the ugh, vomit? Around 6, 7, 8, right? Anyone above an 8 of the vomit as they started to write it down? Anyone start to have that increase as they started to share? Right? So when you started to actually have to go public about it, it may have gotten a little bit harder. How many of you feel better now and it's gone down a little bit now that it's actually all gone? It's all been said. Does anyone feel better now that they've just said it? A little bit? All right, some people may still feel like, oh my God, I just outed myself, like, no way, right? So this whole experience, right? So even just telling the truth about it to someone else and being public about that, there's a certain sense of like, oh, I'm not the only one dealing with this. So we're going to go to the next step of it. And the next step is putting your judgments on mute, right? And I love the word mute. Because the thing is with the judgments is they're the ones, if they start running and you can hear them, that's that critical voice like, oh my God, how could you do that? Like, that's so bad. And like, what are they going to think? And like that whole judgment thing that goes in the back of your head, that's what spins you to keep this as an ugly. If this thing keeps going and your judgments keep running, then you're stuck and it's going to stay an ugly. So we actually need to put them on mute. They don't have to go away, but they have to just at least be silenced for a few minutes so that we can look somewhere else, right? And the idea of this also is to look at, this is the opportunity of putting the beach ball and letting it go and having it come to the surface, right? So partner B, go ahead and start. What's it like to try and put your judgments on mute? Go ahead. And please stop talking. And then I'd like to just take a couple people to share, maybe out loud. Just if you could share the ugly, share what the truth was or parts of the truth, and then what's it like to put the judgments on mute. Is anyone brave enough, courageous enough to share out to the group? Hannah, awesome. Let's give Hannah a round of applause for her courage. Excellent. Go ahead, Hannah.
Okay, so my ugly is that sometimes, or often even, I feel stressed and maybe unhappy about what I've done in school or grades, and the pressure to do really well in all areas and sign up for the hardest courses next year and still do well.
So like the super high expectations and then not fulfilling them.
But then
right?
It's because I want to do really well in my future. I want to be a doctor, to go to a really good school, but then the steps to get there are really stressful.
Mm-hmm.
So my truth is that sometimes when I've done really well in most things in school, and then maybe I get back that one test grade that I'm not proud of and I just can't let it go,
mm-hmm.
or that I kind of fall apart of it because it discourages me from doing well and everything else.
Right.
So
what's the thought that you have when you actually don't do well? Like, what are the thoughts, or what does the voice tell you?
Kind of like,
the really evil stuff that they say.
Yeah, like, look what you've done now. It's going south because now it's less possible for you to get to that school you want to go to.
Right, so you're not going to get into the right school, you're not going to become a doctor, and it becomes like this, like, I'm going to be homeless. Like, the voice can sometimes go that direction, right? Anyone relate to that voice just going like, whoa, way off track, right? So thank you for that courage. So what did it feel like to actually put that stuff on mute?
Well, if I could put that stuff on mute, I would still want to feel that motivation and that little bit of stress that keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
And I still want to care about what I'm doing.
Sure.
But if I could be happy with what I've already done and can't go back and change something I already did in school,
right,
I'd be more free to pursue better things moving on.
Right. Awesome. So there's just more freedom that happens when that judgment goes on mute, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. But in the process of putting that stuff, you have more distance and ability to think. Because when you're in judgment, you're coming from a reactionary place, and it's almost a default that you keep running into this thing. So if you can put them on mute, then you can actually use this part of your brain instead of this part of your brain. The reactionary part is the amygdala, which is back here, which is that like fight, flight, freeze. And then you can actually turn that part off and actually use the frontal lobes and think about what you're doing. So we're going to move into the next part, which is the best part of it. So if we can move to step 3, which is finding the beauty in the beast. So the beauty in the beast is finding that gift. Finding that opportunity to turn that beach ball that you had underwater that you could only look down at and turn it to the other side and see what else is a part of this. What else do we have as a part of this? What value comes from this part of yourself? So I want you to kind of look for yourself. What's the value? What do you get from it? There may be a gift to it. There may be a lesson that you've learned from this experience. Think for yourself, what can be some of the good stuff about this particular ugly? And you don't have to erase all the other pieces of it, but to know that there's two sides of the coin. The ugly has good stuff and bad stuff to it. So we're just kind of flipping the ball over. The other side still exists, but we're just flipping it over to see what can we see on the other side. Step 4, what's the experience like for you after finding the gift? Are there any new thoughts that you had? Are there new feelings? Are there any shifts in the way that your body feels? Sometimes people feel like their weight has been taken off their shoulders, or there's less stress. They can breathe a little deeper. That's usually my experience. So just what's there for you. So now that it's marinated, if if you can put on your hands kind of where you are on your yuck scale. So 10 is like the worst yuck, and then 1 or 0 being like no yuck at all. Just put up how many fingers you think you are. 1 through 10. Just put up how many you think. What's the first number that comes into mind? Okay, we got some 2s, we got 3s, 5s, 6s. Okay, awesome. All right, and is that a lower number than when it started? Yeah. Okay. So now that we've let that marinate, now the opportunity is to do step 5, which is to go public. Now that makes some of you, that yuck may just rise right back up with the go public. I understand, but here is the opportunity for going public. So you had a personal transformation, a personal shift, and now we're going to make it public. And the purpose of that is for a couple of reasons. One of them is if you share it with other people, then you get support around it. So when you forget that you just shifted this ugly, then you now have some support systems in place to help remind you that if you forget, right? So as Hannah was saying, when she gets stressed out about school, if you share with a few of your friends and maybe your parents so that they can say, remember, this is the gift of that part of you, so that you can shift it a little bit. So it's a little bit faster when you've got people to remind you. And I've always got my go-to people when I forget those uglies and they rise up so that they can help me find the gift again. So there's definitely some opportunities in that. And the other big one is, and for me this is critical, is that the more that we share our uglies, the more people feel not alone. The more that people feel like, oh, I'm not the only one dealing with this. And you give people permission, you allow them to own their own humanity and to be able to own and love their own uglies as you start to go public about it. Think of a couple of people that you know that if you shared with them, it would really help you to support you in continuing to love this ugly or to open something up for them. There is a blank sheet of paper underneath, and there is a marker. So you're going to get an opportunity to declare your ugly loud and proud with you. So go ahead and bring your sign up with you, and we're going to get into a circle. Come in a circle. All right. Go ahead and show it loud and proud. So ladies, keep showing your uglies, because now there's beauty in the beast, right? So just recognize, how many of you saw or heard yourself in some of the other shares that you heard? Right? That's really what this is about, right? The freedom to just be ourselves, good, the bad, and the ugly of who we are. And there's a lot of power in that, because you're not so constrained by trying to show up just like everyone else. So these signs are here to remind you. I think I would add in your gifts right there next to it, so you can see Beauty and Beast at the same time, and put that somewhere where you can remember who you are, both the good, the bad, and the brilliant and the ugly all at once. I want to thank you, while we're all in this circle, for your courage of sharing and your generosity. So it shows a lot about what your commitments are and who you are as young women, and I want to thank you for that. So let's give each other a round of applause.